Satuma Sakamaya Om Dhammasoma Jutigamaya Om Niruktorma Amritam Gammaya Om Shanti 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 O Lord, may Thou leadest us from the unreal unto the real, and from darkness unto the light, and from death unto immortality. Peace, 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 by Thy grace. Worship. All right. I should offer you a Merry Christmas first. That way I'll balance out any damage that I might do today.
Happy birthday, Master.
Thank you, beloved. I don't know how happy that is. I'll take it, huh? You know, our birthdays are really great occasions, meant for more than the receiving of gifts and salutations and so forth and so on, but really an opportunity for us to simply sit that day and really reflect. If you make full use of your birthday, I mean, really take a day off from all of your other distractions and really sit your life in the palm of your hand. It will be like a Gita. You'll have a chance to really reflect on your life, you see, and to see how you are using it year by year. And you'll also get a chance to reflect on your body and see how you losing it year by year. And those two reflections very often will elevate your level of seriousness and refocus you on what a human lifetime is really all about, you see. So birthdays are good if you know how to use them. Otherwise, it can be very depressive and fuel more illusions because, you see, in fact, my oldest brother, we call him Big Daddy, and he was calling me, and he was telling me, okay, he says, you got one more year, and then you'll be a grown man. That was so sweet, you know. So I guess 69 don't count. One more year. So I don't know if that's good news or bad. Well, we're waiting for Roger Vitter to get here and set up all of the equipment. So I hope you can hear me good enough. And we can open up the floor and you can imagine a song, you see. You can play it in your mind, you see. Or we can have an early Savor Day performance. I think I can put together a group. Huh? Right? But surely we can continue as usual. And if you have anything that you'd like to discuss, I think this is a good time to do it. Certainly a beautiful day for coming together, you see. So, who has something that they'd like to start out with? Or we can just be casual, informal. You can ask me questions. or I can ask you questions, so. You might want to take advantage of being the first one to go here. Anything?
Beloved, what do you think or feel was the common thread that linked the Ingram family together and you were giving birth into the family of Ingrams?
That's a real interesting question. Siddhartha had many theories. You know, Siddhartha said we were a reincarnation of Jananeshwar and Muktibai and so forth and so on. You know, this was a family of 4 siblings who really created some tradition in the south of India. And he said we were previously this kind of a Sangha family, you see. I discounted that because all of them was dead by 25. So, but I mean, it was remarkable. I mean, Jananeshwar and Muktabai and all of them, and they really, for all practical purposes, created the Sant tradition down in the south of India. And in the south of India, for those who may not be familiar with that area of the world, the people look just like us. Highly melanated and so forth and so on. And the tracking of the diaspora out of Africa, you see, came there because in India developed from the south to the north. And that's why if you go to India, you'll see as you move from the south to the north, their skin change, they get lighter and lighter and lighter and so forth and so on. It indicates that the first wave of humanity in that part of the world was coming up out of Africa there. And so it maintains a lot of the fragments of the Chetawamata, you see, the spiritual tradition that informed and created the great African spiritual traditions, you see. And very interesting. Oh, I guess he's here. So, but back to your question, and that was the Darjan theory, you see. Well, certainly we have some common, you see. A very different kind of thing. I have to put that on? I was getting used to being normal today. So there was a certain spirit in the flavor to the family. Really interesting. I won't bore you with all of the very long and interesting history, but certainly being 11 strong and poor and so forth and so on, all of that was a good foundation, you see, for any seeds to sprout that was going to ultimately become spiritual-like beings, you see. Poverty and suffering, you know, it builds character. It makes it very difficult to arrogate to yourself a certain kind of status, you know, that in reality you don't possess, and so forth and so on. And then having a lot of siblings, you know, you get a good ego beating, you know what I mean, on a daily basis, right? So, and you don't get trapped in mamakata. Mamakata is a definition of things that we say are mine. This is mine, you see. Nobody owns nothing, because I could wear a Bilal shirt, you know, if he didn't take it out the closet, he has no grievance. So you have the experience of nothing really is truly yours. Not even your body, because Rani Kamari, her biggest grievance was, they keep touching me. And your body, why you were chill out? And of course, there was, and I'm sure our family was no different than the Gardner's family, you see. I'm just kidding.
That's a good one.
But it was a kind of philosophical thread that ran through the family, you know, where not having been programmed into the church-going type of life, but not necessarily rejecting that either, you see. It was a kind of more open-minded, you see. And we began to kind of really discuss things. I can even remember, maybe Bilal can remember better than me. He's a lot older than me. But I seem to recall occasion with little boys, and I think that we had Big Mama told us about the Genesis story. We just decide, let's explore this whole theory about the origin of creation. I have no real recollection. But somehow or another, I think the subject came up, and the part that was difficult to process, well, how did all these people get here from Adam and Eve? Unless, you know, there was some Jerry Springer chick. That wasn't you know, still haven't figured that out. But there were those kind of things that would be unusual conversation for 6, 8-year-old boys. You know what I mean? Normally you'll be talking about who's the strongest superhero, you know what I mean, so forth and so on. But those were the kind of conversations that went on. And so forth and so on. And so I suppose the House of Ra really began back then. That was the first perennial question that we began to discuss. And fast forwarding it to the very time we're living in now, you see, it was a gate that opened up and confronted us, at least I can speak for myself, with the rest of the perennial questions, you know? That question was of the search for knowledge about the world. What is this world, and how did it get here, and where all these people come from? We discounted the Adam and Eve story. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not destroying anybody's faith. But the question remained, you see. It was a perennial question. And that's a natural question that anyone asks if they have hashed into some level of intelligence beyond the mundane. You see, flatliners are not going to be asking questions like that, you see. Their only perennial question is, when I'm going to get something to eat? You know what I mean? And something to wear, et cetera, right? But it persisted. I guess that was the seed, the gateway that opened up into a onslaught of similar type question. So that question, what is this place? And how did all this get here? You see? That quest for the knowledge of the world. What is the world for real? You see? Mabota, you see? You want to know, what is this place that I'm in? You see, what's going on here? You see? What is this body? What's in it? What animates it? You know, you notice that at night, his body don't move, you know what I mean? Well, that could be a great adventure, you see. you can pour water on them and all of that and twist and turn them. I mean, it was, I think you put some water on one of your siblings too. I'm not gonna go any further with that. Everybody knows. But the point is that what animates this body? You know? What gives you this ability to see, hear, touch, taste, feel, smell? What's moving this breath up and down? What is circulating this blood? What is the cause of all of that? What's up with that? You see? And then, of course, there's always the ultimate third question: what is God? And is there a God? And it took a minute, I suppose, to get to that part of those perennial questions. But I can just really remember, I think we're living on Washington. I think I was about 9 or 10, something like that. I think we moved there on my 9th birthday.
Your
like
10th
that.
birthday.
How?
10, you made 10.
10, okay, told you he was old. 10 years old. And I remember that was like another hatching. And somewhere along that, at that period of life, for some reason I started becoming interested in Greek philosophy, mythology, and all of that kind of thing. I think we composed a book called, what was it, the Book of Love or something? Well, I don't know what we call it, something like that. And of course I wrote my poetry. Bilal illustrated. You know, Bilal is an excellent artist, right? But I remember shortly after that, I began to decide, and this is now moving toward puberty, right? And I'm getting to be well, in my mind, a big boy. I was probably only that tall, but in my mind, I'm a big boy now, right? And so I can do things that I couldn't do, and some of the things I want to do was very interesting and exciting, but they might have been wrong. You know, it might have been the wrong kind of stuff to do, you see? And so I was trying to figure out, well, if there's a God, then I'm going to be penalized for doing something wrong. But if there's not a God, I'm going to roll with this. You see? So I was torn to be or not to be a believer, right? And I was trying to figure out, well, okay, how do I move beyond this simple stage of choosing between two beliefs, right? How do I really know if there is a God, you know, or not? Because that's important, because that's going to have to determine how I live the rest of my life, right? You see? And that took segue into other things and so forth. Well, finally, Sarah, after I found a few answers that was, at least made sense, still was not equal to direct food, what we call aporoshanabuti, straight personal experience. But it was logical arguments, you see? And so forth and so on. And I guess that led to the encounter with Radha Swami Mahatma, you see, in the teachings. And then from there, then I start harassing whoever would listen to me, right? Yeah, and started at home first, right? You need to change this, change that. Had to make some changes myself, et cetera, et cetera. But what is remarkable is that at least half of the family, you see, became a Sangha, literally. You see. And so we would have satsang on the front porch, we would have satsang in the parks, and even when we have gatherings, I think Siddhartha was the most radical one, you know what I mean? Because he had no respect for Thanksgiving and Christmas when people traditionally get together, right? And we're supposed to have a good time and clown and dance, which we do very well, right? But this Siddhartha, you know what I mean? Invariably would say, but what? Let's have that. I said, here, I'm trying to have, we supposed to be, this is supposed to be a holiday, man. But that was, the scene, and even when he was a little boy, you know, he was sitting.
And for his birthday.
For his birthday. In fact, until he died, his birthday, every day had to be celebrated with sad song.
Right.
Yeah, we would have sad song together, you see. And it's really something, you see. And you know Mahajana Way, Lieutenant, right? And he was a philosopher too, you know what I mean? And so, in fact, he named his son after Rajneesh, Way Rajneesh, you see? And I had introduced him to Rajneesh, you see? And so, I mean, it's really interesting, right? It's really interesting. So we have a Rajneesh in the down line, we have a Buddha in the down line. We have a Sahib in the down line. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this goes. All right, I think that's enough trivia for you today. The maestro is here today, so I suppose we'll have our music and then we will pick up from where the Spirit leads us. Fair enough? Gotcha.
It was a little church sitting down in the woods, and at the church they had a choir, and they could sing real well. And there was an old deacon there, had been going to that church for a mighty long time. Every Sunday morning, he would always beg that choir director, say, listen, would you let me sing a song? He said, I got a song that I want to sing. But you know what that choir director told me? He said, oh man, you too old to sing in this choir. He said, you got a tremble in your voice. Yeah. Heard the old man say, and y'all might not believe it, but when you get old, old folks do you like that. When you get old, people just push you on the side. But they went to church the next Sunday morning, and they noticed that the old man wasn't sitting in the corner. And they went on back to church that next Sunday morning, and they noticed that the old man still wasn't sitting in the corner. They get worried now. And they went on back that next Sunday morning, and they noticed that the old man still wasn't sitting in the corner. Somebody begin to ask questions about it. Has anybody seen the old man? Look at here. Has anybody heard from the old man? Smiling, or voice just came down everywhere. I believe I'm gonna let Dad tell you what the voice said. They will let me sing And everybody began to look up toward heaven. And an old man's voice began to talk to him. He said, "Share is one thing about this choir that I sing with now." He said, "We don't have to wait until Sunday morning to sing. But every morning, we'll we get together and we sing songs that you never heard in your life. And if y'all don't mind, if y'all don't mind, if y'all don't mind, you'll let Daddy tell you what he's saying. One more time, can you tell it? Won't it be good when we get there? What I like about it, there'll be no more senior choir, no more young adult choir, no more inspirational choir. But I'm talking about when we get there, everybody's gonna get together. No more jealousy, no more hatred, no more envy. Here's the thing I like about it. You know how sometimes your body gets tired of singing? You see, there'll be no more Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays and Saturdays. But but somebody here ain't got some daddy. Those of you that don't have my daddy, let me ask you something. I don't want you to say it because I'm asking you, but if this is the way you feel, let me ask you something. Won't God be a father for you? One of these days, when this old war is over, we're going to take off these old shoes we got on. Take off these suits we got on, put on a long white. I'm gonna let my daddy tell you
Christmas, I thought it would be good to kind of revisit that kind of bhakti that informed Christianity back in the day. You won't probably find it in these contemporary churches. They become so full of show business and so forth and so on. But certainly those lyrics are very appropriate, I know, for us, because we have a Paul that can't sing a lick. But he will have a chance to sing, I'm sure. He's 93, so it won't be long. But in any case, it's Christmas. And so we will acknowledge Jesus and that whole tradition, because many of us are part of that. So I just wanted to remind you that and help you remember what your big mom and your big daddy was encouraging you to go to church for. And it certainly wasn't to show off your new outfit. Fair enough?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, so floor is open. Whatever you rascals would like to explore, you're most welcome. Ready, come on, ready. Shake 'em.
I was going to ask you, and if you think so, why do you think Jesus most symbolizes an advent and a season of blessing?
Say that one more time.
If you think so and agree, why do you think Jesus most represents the advent and of bringing in a season of blessings?
I think because most of us are in the West, and almost none of us has grown up with any kind of real knowledge of or exposure to some of the other great traditions, you see? And so the avatar and phenomena, the incarnation, you see, of that kind of human vehicle that is open and clear to conduct the force of love, you see? For us in the West, that almost always remind us of a Jesus. But of course, you know, there's been other avatars before and afterwards, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things about the way, because what Jesus brought was a way out of your suffering and sorrow. You see, he was a bhakti yoga par excellent. Are you with me? And the metaphor is of incarnation splitting time. You know what I mean? Was very appropriate because that world that he came into up until that time was pretty much what we would consider to be like the Kali Yuga, the Dark Ages. Are you with me? You see, religion, you see, and that part of the world had already deteriorated, you see, into business, Pharisees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you see. And just as with Lord Krishna, Hinduism, it says when mankind has sank too low, he comes, you see. So in some sense, Jesus or Christ and Christo or Krishna, you see, again, you see the similarity. But certainly, in spite of all of the chicanery that went on with the interpretation of his teachings, nevertheless, that is the example of what it means to be made in God's image. You see, homoousis is what they call it in theology. You see, half man, half God, or however you want to mix that combination of, you see, a perfect human being, capable of unconditional love under all circumstances. You see, one who has fulfilled the great purpose of being a human being in the first place, which is to become the agency of love under all conditions, you see, even your enemy, you see. They even redefine what an enemy is, and you see some of that in Islam. You see the original meaning of jihad is to fight against your own ego. You see, that's jihad, not blowing up buildings, you see. It has no political connotation, it's spiritual. And of course, Jesus exemplified that. These Western religions, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, etc., they have a lot of the fragments of the ancient African spiritual tradition reflected in their dogma and doctrines, you see. And Christianity and Judaism, perhaps a little bit more than, Christianity and Islam, a little bit more than Judaism, really resonate with black people, because some of that Chetawanda is in you too. It's buried, it's dormant, you see? But it triggers that emotion. Are you with me? That love, you see. And that's why the gospel church and gospel music, you know what I mean? It affects you. You see, you feel that. You can resonate with that, you see. There's some bhakti in that, you see. Now, of course, there's been different variations of Christianity and the practice of Christianity. So you can go into different denominations, you see, and among the different ethnic groups, right? And you can go to some of the churches and so forth, and they're singing "Don't Do Nothing to You." You know what I mean? Boys, you know what I'm saying? You see, although their rituals are beautiful, but that don't do nothing to you either, because you have really no grounding in metaphysics and the symbolism, you see. It's only when you go to Africa and you look at those pyramid texts along those walls and you see the Pope with his meteor bar. You understand that it's a symbol of Osiris, you see, the perfect man, and so forth and so on. And so you can appreciate the symbolism, but if you're from the west side, you know, you might want to steal one of these golden chalices, but you see, so forth and so on. But the point is that it does seem to be the case, Ronnie Kamara, that with the advent of Jesus the Christ, you see, there was a little something given to everybody that could receive it. Even in India, Thomas went to India, you know, taking that teaching. So in India, it's one of the oldest Christian churches of all, you see. That's directly linked to an actual disciple of Jesus. Not like Paul, you see. Paul was not a direct disciple, never met Jesus at all, you see. And so most of the Christianity in the West is Paulism, fundamentally, you see. So it's a very different thing, very different thing. But you know, what's really important is that most of us heard about Jesus through one of our grandparents or our mom and our daddy, you see. And so when those teachings came through their mouth and their love, that is what impacts you. See? So it's not so much the stories in the Bible, but a big mama told you that laced that story with love, acted out that teaching, and gave you the experience of Christianity. Are you with me? You see, you can't technically really learn anything from Christianity by reading the Bible. You'll get some anecdotes, some stories, but you can only learn about Christianity through a Christian who can conduct those teachings and give you the experience of being loved like Jesus loved those disciples that were contemporary to him. You see? And it doesn't have to be a guru or anything. It just anyone in our lives who does that. You see, that gives Christianity its credibility. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. It's like that, a little bit like that. Mm-hmm. And it changes you. So even in the lyric of many of these gospel songs that we all sing and hear and remember when we were little children, a lot of the transformation that people experienced in the black church is oftentimes attributed to a praying grandmother, or somebody prayed for you. You had a praying daddy, you had a praying grandmother. And that is what transformed you. You follow me? It wasn't the book, you see. Most people who profess to be Christians really don't even know the book. You see, the only part of the Bible they read is the passage that the preacher points out when he's preaching, and then the book is closed. It stays on the shelf until next Sunday. They don't go to school with it. Are you with me? They don't go to school. I don't even know if that answers your question fully or sufficiently. I see. Okay. Something else. You hear me? Okay.
I wanted to ask about, because you were talking about how our ancestors imbibed teachings of Christianity. And can you talk about, because there's something about what those slaves had that rooted that just really stands out for me. If you could talk about that.
Just a little bit. I mean, there's so much that can be said about all of that stuff. Much has been said, you know. And I know Bilal has invested a lot of time and energy in creating an archive. We got all kinds of endless history and so forth along those lines. One of the things about those times during the Ma'afa and the enslavement of Africans here in the West was that once you entered into enslavement, a lot of your differences were disappeared. It didn't make no difference whether you were Ibu or Akan. You see, it didn't make no difference whether you were the prince or a farmer. Once you're in that slave ship, once you get off that slave ship, all of those things that you incorporate into your sense of self that distinguishes you from others and make you better than or worse than disappear. You're all nothing. You see? You're not even human. Right? Well, with the annihilation of that kind of egoity that makes unity difficult, right? There will be a little bit more unity as a result of that, a little bit more love, a little bit more empathy, you see? Because you see on a daily basis all of the horror that is happening to others, and same horror is happening to you. You bond, you see? You bond. You became closer together became more of a oneness, you see. You became the consoler of one another. Are you with me? They whip you. You see my point, and I could feel every lick on your back, because I've been whipped too. I know the pain you're in, you see. So after they drag you to the shed, we still a way to come out there and put some stuff on your back and console you. You follow what I'm saying? Because they're whooping you is whooping us. You see? All that arrogance, vanity, distinction, economic differences, classism, even gender differences disappear, you see. So in some sense, though you may find it hard to conceive of, the grace of that kind of suffering, you see, always will produce a different quality of human being, you see, and so forth and so on. And I know that there's many expressions of that, you see, from Southern hospitality and so forth and so on. Generosity, you see, helping other black people, et cetera, et cetera. It was just natural. It wasn't a result of hearing a lecture. Carruthers was not necessary to create that kind of consciousness. There was no Carruthers, you see. There was no African centricity. It wasn't necessary. It was life that created that. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. Only life can create it, you see. And it generated a whole different kind of human being that was strapped in there, who incidentally wouldn't have been like that if they had not went through that tapasiyan, that purification process. It's called, go to Nigeria now, you see? And see the differences, you see? Very different, you see? But there's still some pockets of it here and there. Go to South Africa, you'll see it's not like those old Africans in that slave trade. It's not that kind of oneness. And they got to a point eventually where they became capable, at least in some parts of the world, of what they call fierce love, and that's high 18. You watch that, right? Where that love was fierce now. You follow what I'm saying? Ultimately, they appreciated freedom, because we don't appreciate freedom. You see, they appreciate freedom. You see, you got all this freedom and you worried about chicken shit. You know what I mean? Trivial, little stuff. What's on sale? How many more pairs of shoes you can get? You understand what I'm saying to you? All right? That wasn't the case. You see, they understood that the most important psychological need that any human being has is to be free. Even free at the most gross level, free to use your body. And rather than have others constantly using your body. You follow what I'm saying? To do their will and etc. Are you following my argument? And so they fell in love with freedom at the most fundamental level, for sure, right? Moksha. They wanted to be free. And they were not kidding. And some of those communities, principally in Haiti, right? You'll see people willing to die for that freedom. You see, Napoleon and all of the other European forces could not stop that love of freedom that those Haitian people had. You see it in some other places, but most spectacular in Haiti. And Napoleon had sent them big cannons up that rock, and people running up there, putting their whole body in there, stopping that cannonball from killing them. That's the real desire to be free. free. I mean, and if they wouldn't have did that, you would have no freedom. But what have you done with the freedom they died for you to have? You piss it away. On trivia, you watch TV all day. You see? So the slaves have nothing to be ashamed of. You have much to be ashamed of. It's not even spiritually right for you to even call yourself black. I'm black. No. You have none of the values of the original black, the OGs. Yes, beloved.
Speaking of freedom, I saw an interesting interview that Morgan Freeman did in his series, The Story of Us, with a young Korean man who was born and raised in North Korean concentration camp. He was in his 20s before he escaped from this camp, and the friend who was with him died in this effort for them to seek freedom. It took him many, many years to actually grasp what freedom meant, because when he grew up, there was no such thing as emotion, feelings. As far as he knew, his parents were just other people in this concentration camp. He saw his mother and his sister executed, and he saw a 6-year-old child be beat to death because she ate something that was not given to her. So when he finally escaped, he had PTSD. He was having nightmares, so forth and so on, and he just had a very difficult time. He was free, but he wasn't free. He finally did meet and marry a Korean woman, and she helped him eventually understand what freedom meant. But his mind just did not know.
Yes, his mind probably wouldn't know, not at the conscious level. The spirit knows it.
Right.
See, because it's much deeper than surface psychology. You see, it's like being underwater, and you know that I got to get my head above water, because if I don't, someone's gonna die here. I eat about it. So it's at a much more subtle level, a much deeper level. It's at the level of a human being's essence. You know what I mean? And without that freedom, then you pretty much do become dead. And like any dead person, you don't know what's going on, you see? Because you're dead, something dead in you. Something in you is no longer connected to the world, you see? And so this is a common phenomenon, you see? But nevertheless, it is there, you see? And you have to remember the ancient Africans who were caught up in the ma'afa, in the slave trade. They had known freedom. So it wasn't like that Korean kid, you know what I mean? The original ones that came, they still had that, you see? And it was passed down here and there, here and there. But over time, then perhaps we have become like they are, the Korean. You don't even know what freedom is. You don't even know the value of freedom at all, you see. And that's just political freedom. But the mystics and the sages are talking about a freedom way beyond that, you see. A freedom from psychological dependency on this or that for the sake of being fulfilled, etc. So moksha, salvation, liberation, that's freedom of the ultimate nature. You see my point? Because even when you're free physically, you're still not free. Please enjoy the distinction. You see, we arrogate to ourselves a freedom, but it's not the freedom that you're looking for. Because you're looking for a deeper kind of freedom. You're looking for a kind of freedom that makes it completely unnecessary for you to do or have anything for the sake of being happy. That's the kind of freedom you want. You really want freedom from the world. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. You're just not conscious of it, but it's nevertheless there operating in you see, all the time. And that's what you're really seeking. You see, you call it happiness, right? You see, but what you're seeking is this freedom. You see? From this world, samsara. Free from this dependency on all of these things that make up our worldly experiences. You see, you don't want to be enslaved no more. You see, that's what you're looking for. You see, but you're not going to find freedom while remaining on the plantation. True? True. I let you move in the big house, but you just a house nigga. You move to the suburbs, get you 2 cars and a 2.5 garage, some nice suits, get you a couple of degrees. So, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Well, in the same way, you still caught up in the world and you're trying to be free. That's not going to happen. There's nothing in this world or anyone else in this world that will be the source of the freedom you're looking for. And that's what you got to understand. Remember, we're talking about those perennial inquiries, you see? Inquiry into yourself. What am I, really? What am I? What is all of this thing that I call me? What is all that about, you see? You have to make an inquiry into that, you see, and get knowledge of the Atma, the Jiva, you see. Atma Vicharya, inquiry, you gotta find yourself out. You don't even know yourself. There can't be any other ignorance that is more profound than that. You don't know who or what you are, you see, at all. And the evidence is just chaos, just chaos. You married the wrong person, you moved into the wrong neighborhood, you bought the wrong size shoes. I mean, you don't know what and who you are. You have no idea. You are ignorant. And you will remain such unless you enter into this. And you can't go to a therapist, you can't go to Satrod for them to tell you who you are, film is $100 or $25 fee. You'll get rich, but you don't remain ignorant. You can't go to the university because the teachers themselves are ignorant of themselves. How can someone who don't know themselves tell you who you are? That shit is not going to happen. You see, some knowledge you have to get on your own. It's like that. You're not going to get it out of a book. You're not going to get it out of the scripture. You're not going to get it out of meetings like this here. Not going to happen. That's sacred knowledge. You have to get that yourself. It's your work. And either you do that work or you don't do that work. It's really that simple. And then once you acquire that kind of knowledge, you see, then the next is the samsara. Got to figure this out. What is this place, you see? It looks so real. See, just like that oasis in the desert looks real. It looks so real. And then, of course, how did all of this get here? What I am, what the world is, and what is the source of all of this? What is God? All of that is your work. See? All of it. See? And this is how it goes, you see. But you won't be able to do that work unless you have this intense desire to be free. That's the capital. You see, that's the currency you need to travel that journey. You see, like you're going to go to Hawaii, you need some money, right? You got to buy plane tickets, food, pay for the whole. I mean, there must be a currency to finance your journey, right? Similarly, on the spiritual journey, you got to have the right currency. And the currency necessary to fuel and pay for, so to speak, a spiritual journey is what they call sarada, faith. Interesting. The whole trip starts with faith. If you don't have no faith, you can't make the trip. It's really that simple. You broke. You can't go nowhere. You can look at magazines. You see, you can look at the Bhagwan magazine and see those pretty spiritual people. You look at the Jewish mystics. You can look at the Rumis. It's just brochures. You broke. You ain't going nowhere. You have no sarada, faith. And what is faith? Faith is nothing other than this intense desire and enthusiasm and willingness to be free. You're not free yet, but you have the sarada that is necessary to fuel the journey. You won't run out of dough. Are you with me? You'll be able to persevere. You'll be able to hang in there. You won't get discouraged. You understand? When you make this trip, you got plenty of faith. You know what I mean? You make the trip. But without sarada, without faith, you don't. Without sarada, you don't even have the capacity to remain stable even in your intellectual insights and realization. You see, when you're reading these great treatises on spirituality and so forth, you get insight and you straight, but the moment you close the book, it's like, shit. When the situation, and you're always going to get a situation, let me reveal a secret how the universe works here. When you're given an insight by grace, you're also going to be given a situation by that same grace to see whether you got the lesson. This is school. You're going to have to take a test. And it does not mark on curve. So you said, oh, I see everything here. It's Maya, it's illusion. Okay, then the test comes. Well, you forgot that this was mine. So your grade is suffering. That's the universe give you suffering. You got to suffer. You got to help. Scientists. Sarada, that intense desire, enthusiasm. You see, it's not punishment. Meditation is not a discipline you imposed upon yourself. Oh, I gotta go meditate. No. This is opportunity. This is grace. Oh man, this is great. It's not an ordeal. It's an opportunity. It's something you approach full of enthusiasm, gratitude. You know what I mean? So Sharada is not that kind of enforcing on yourself of a discipline. That's not Sharada. That's a belief. See, beliefs you have to enforce. Because you really don't have a justification for believing that in the first place. You see, it has no real depth, no real strength. It's counterfeit. You see my point? You see? It's going on your trip with a lot of Monopoly money. Come on. Monopoly money, right? That's what I mean. Monopoly money, right? You gotta have cash, cold cash, right? And if there is charada, and it's the real deal, you see, can you cut through those obstacles like a hot knife cutting through butter? You can go distance, because there's always going to be some distance. So that's the initial, you follow? And it doesn't matter which path you choose that resonates with you. You know, in yoga, we talk about karma yoga, bhakti yoga, right? Jnana yoga, raja yoga, all kinds of different yoga schools, different disciplines and so forth. But what all of them require to succeed on is shraddha. You can't do no karma yoga if you don't have no faith. You can't do jhana yoga if you don't have shraddha. It's not going to happen. You see? You're not going to be able to read no Yoga Vasista. That's 30,000 verses. You got to get you some sleep. You see what I mean? Are you feeling it?
Yes, sir.
So it doesn't matter, you see. You can't definitely do any bhakti yoga without shraddha. It's like that. Nothing is done without shraddha. Nothing. You see. Much more can be said about that. I think, Lakeisha, you got a question or something? No. Oh, you have to get that other person. Okay. You were saying amen.
Yes, Lord.
All right. You're looking beautiful back there. Come sit closer. Something else about it.
It just seems so contradicting, Bhagwan,
Also,
to be ignorant and have a desire to be free. Oh, that's it.
Get up, stand up, stand up, stand up.
You know what I'm saying?
yes, it is a
No.
contradiction.
Where would even that desire to be free come from being ignorant? I mean, what would resonate that, like, just like you said, the intense desire to want to be free? How do you pull it out of ignorance?
It is not yet intense. It's some there. You see, you would not have responded to the church, you would not have responded to this, you certainly wouldn't have responded to this stuff, none of this kind of stuff, you see, if it wasn't some desire, you see. So it's not like zero out, are you with me? But it's not intense, you see. You want to go to Hawaii, right? And you do have $50. The problem is $50 is not enough money to get there, baby. That's all. You see? Now, if you read, as that desire increase, you start conserving more and more of your capital. You see? You start missing some hair appointments. You don't buy another 25 pairs of shoes that you don't need. You can't wear all them shoes no way. And so forth and so on. Are you with me? You save up for it. You start doing what is realistically required to get the money, right? Something like that.
Okay.
Makes it. So the more intense that desire becomes, the more the desired goal becomes a priority. You see, we got priorities, right? So it's sort of like that, you see. So keep saving your nipples and pins. You're gonna be all right. You see.
Thank you.
You're welcome, beloved. Something else? Yes, beloved.
Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up.
It seemed like we kind of cling to our ignorance and guard it. If that's the case, then why is that the case?
Ego. Ego. Because you incorporate your opinions and your beliefs into your fundamental sense of self and identity. Just like you incorporate your body, your age, your gender, et cetera, all of those different parts that make up the ego. Some of those parts are purely mental, psychological, emotional, et cetera, but they all are rolled into a big ball, and that becomes ego, you see. And a lot of times you see the egoic state, it's not like it doesn't have some kind of knowledge, what we call ignorance. Ignorance is not the complete absence of knowledge, it's just the presence of wrong knowledge, you see? Wrong knowledge. And usually the things that we call our knowledge is very often not even our knowledge, it's borrowed, you see, or speculative, you see, philosophical, but not existential, not grounded, not firsthand, you see, not direct, et cetera, et cetera. This is a kind of psychological mechanism that produces in us what we call wrongophobia. You can't be wrong. You see, faultophobia, it should be my fault. You see, and so you will see that kind of mind that is full of this wrong knowledge or this egotism or arrogance and vanity, as they call it, you see. In fact, when the mystics talk about vanity, see, when they talk about anger, lust, greed, attachment, vanity, those are things in your mind. Are you with me? You see, your body doesn't have vanity, it's in your mind, you see, et cetera, et cetera. Distorts the reality, are you with me? And so you come away thinking that, you see, my wrong knowledge is right knowledge, you see, and therefore I can't be wrong. And that manifests in your whole personality and how you do your life and how you're doing your relationships. You're being wrongophobic in relationships, are you with me? And either that leads to divorce or you become a batterer. Because if they don't acknowledge that you're right, you're going to kick somebody else, you follow what I'm saying? Because you got to be right. You see, you have a deficit, you have a spiritual deficit, you see. You can't handle criticism, none of that, you see. And you'll become a blamer. You're always blaming shit on others or other things, other situations. You're blaming and complaining. That becomes a part of your MO. That's all you do. Why? Because it can't ever be your fault. It must be the weather. But the devil did it. Right? Because you can't conceive of the fact that you ain't that smart. You ain't that good of a human being. You're not perfect. And you cannot wrap your head around that. Are you with me? True? That you are sinless, so the other person did something wrong. Are you with me? And that's just a psychological consequence of these spiritual deficits. Are you with me? And so identity is all of our challenge. And that's why denta, sadenta is necessary. There must be shurada, and there must be denta, humility. Humility is to realize you really don't know what you think you know. Now, that's the first blow the ego got to be able to handle. And it's very hard for the ego to handle, especially if it's very well educated. See? It's got PhDs, it's got licenses, blah, 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 blah. And we just can't conceive of it. That here, you have entered into a dimension of life, given that you don't know nothing about this. And therefore, you can't bring the requisite degree of denta, humility. Actually, humility is a sign of great intelligence. See, there's levels of intelligence, and then there's the ultimate level of intelligence where you realize that you don't know. Now, not to be confused with the pathological form of that. Are you with me? There's a pathological kind of thing, too, that goes on, that masquerades as real humility. Are you with me? That's just intellectual laziness. They're just intellectually lazy. They don't want to get it. They don't want to do the work. So they say, oh, but what I don't know, oh, but what I don't know. You see? Just lazy. You're intellectually lazy. That's all going on with you. It's not humble. It's not the I don't know of a person full of denta. It's the I don't know full of a person, about a person who is full of shit. You have to enjoy the distinction.
Yes, sir.
Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
But nevertheless, this denta is required. You must have heard the old claim associated with Socrates, right? The old story is that Athens, center of Greek philosophy, great debaters there, so forth and so on. They had a contest to see who was the greatest, the wisest man in Athens. You all know the story.
Yeah.
But you remember, at the end, they asked Socrates, why did they give him the words? Because I know that I don't know. And that's what justifies it. See? The more intelligent, the more honest you are, you see, the more you are able to accept that. You read Astravaka Gita, you see, you read some of these other stories in the Upanishad, even in the Assyrian mythoscience, right, with the war between Heru and Set, right? And you know, Heru was getting his ass whooped, right? and he had to go to Tehuti and bow down and get that knowledge that enabled him to defeat Set. Are you with me? So you see this thing running from the most ancient time up to the most modern times. Are you with me? Gotta have that. You don't know. You bow down. See, that's one of the most beautiful symbolism in Islam. It's this bowing down. Bowing down itself is a kind of practice. Are you with me? So you see it in Zen traditions and some Japanese traditions and Buddhism and so forth. It's just bowing down. It's African. You see it. If you look at the hieroglyphs and you see them entering into the sacred presence of the Pharaoh, you bow down on your face. You see, you bow down. But in the West, you see, we become so much involved in this egalitarianism and everybody's equal and everybody do their own thing. No. That ain't true, you see? And you have to go down to get up. And that's how it is. And either you do that, or you don't do Does that help some, Sadenta? You want me to change your name? I can. Come on up here. That'll give you some relief. Yes. This is a wave hashish.
Man, this is my uncle, man, right here, my Uncle Steve. I just got a statement. Cause credit, I'm only 26 years old, and ain't nothing what you said went over my head at all from being free, arguing with the college idiot. You know, he has his college degree, but he's still not educated on what's really real in this world, and it's crazy because they call me the old man because, you know, I'm kind of, I see stuff before it happens. It sounds crazy, but it's like, with being free, everybody's so used to the design. Everybody want to live in Highland Park, but if you don't live in Highland Park, it's like you don't got nothing. If you don't got no Gucci or Givenchy, you don't got nothing. You don't really mean nothing to the world. It's crazy because this whole outfit came from Marshall for $20. You know, I still got 5 figures in my bank account.
Yes, sir.
I get what you're saying with the freedom. I practice veganism, so most, you know, women, ain't never heard no guy under 30, you a vegan. Plant-based, they don't even understand it. And so, let's just say I argue with a person who has a PhD in medical PhD. Everybody knows doctors not here to really cure us or to really, you know, help us out. It's an industry. It's just the same drug that our brothers and sisters go on the street for on the street. They selling to us to keep us hooked. So it's like I don't go to the doctor. When my sinuses mess up, I go get my ginger, I go get my orange, I go get my blueberry. But see, I'm only gonna say for black people, we don't know about your diet is your medicine. We talk, man, you just need to go to the doctor, you just need to go get a pill. You don't need that. So I understand that totally. With the humility. You know, I'm young. You know, a lot of young people we think we know what we're talking about, but sometimes, you know, you gotta stand to be corrected. You see what I'm saying? What else? How can I play? I'm a pretty great debater. Like, you're not gonna really win too many debates with me. Another thing, I'm self-educated. You got education to the highest level, but then you got self-education. Yeah, we taught in grammar school Christopher Columbus discovered America, but everybody know that's a lie. Everybody knows that's a lie. You see what I'm saying? But like I said, I'm born in 1991, and you know, what do this little young guy, young skinny dude know about all this stuff, the Federal Reserve? So it's just like, yeah, everything that you're saying is crazy. It's like, ain't none of it went over my head. And I ain't never even went to college for 4 years, but I still know probably more than the average college graduate, from finances to dieting, just everything, kind of how this world works, as he was speaking to. We taught, like he said, from grandma, you do this, you pray, you do this till it happens, but sometimes it don't happen like that for others. Some people have different spirits than others, and I'm an Aquarius. We air. Yeah. Everybody knows, Aquarius is like, we free thinkers. Ain't no such thing as change on the Aquarius, so that's just how it was. Ever since I was a little boy. So I just wanted to state that. Thank you for the invite on us.
All right.
The Ingram seed, that one of the Ingram
This seed is proud to pass the ground. Now it's got to grow. That's good. That's good. Ingram curse. Yes, but like.
I don't know if that's third, but I don't think that's okay. Some time ago, you made a comment to me, this was on some personal stuff, about a situation would bring me closer to God. I know you do call that, right? Probably that, maybe you do, I don't know. But anyway, I tied that into suffering. And I wanted to know if you could elaborate on that. How
situations in our lives, our suffering has the potential to bring us closer to God, bring me closer to God.
Yes. Oh, so much can be said about that. That's a very good inquiry, right? Because if you have suffering, you definitely want to make an inquiry into suffering. You see the causes and so forth and so on. And fortunately for us is that there's been many who have gone before us. These sages have already done the investigation and made the discovery into what are the hidden mechanisms that generate suffering in the first place. But first, I want to say that what suffering does, to piggyback on our conversation with Sardenta, suffering humbles you. You see? So if you're not sufficiently receptive to teachings and sufficiently honest enough to confess that you really don't know what you think you know, then suffering comes to you. We call it grahata, the grace of suffering, because you can't use guru. You see, the function of guru is to shine real knowledge into the darkness of your ignorance that you're confusing with real knowledge. But sometimes because of our own blindness, we can't be helped. Sorry. You know what I mean? The universe itself now becomes your guru. Are you with me? Because guru is a principle, you see. And just like the bodily conveyance of this knowledge is there to tear down your ego eventually, right? Let you know that you ain't all that in the bag of chips. You're not even close to all that in the bag of chips, you see. But it's hard to take that from a human form just like yours. That's why we crucified Jesus. That's why we chased Abu Muhammad out of Mecca. That's why we behead a Mansur, so forth and so on. But you can't kill the principle when it's not yet in a bodily form. It may be influencing other bodies to bring you some suffering. That makes you humble now. You see? It makes you humble now. Because part of what we arrogate for ourselves is that I can, this little body and this little mind can do all kinds of things. Jesus cut through that when he met the arrogant young man. He said, who was talking about all he can do, and Jesus says, you know, shut the up. He was from the west side. Characters from the west side. So Jesus spoke many languages, right? He says, you can't turn one hair gray. How about that? Yes, sir. Can't turn one hair gray. What are you talking about? You are not in charge of this breathing that is keeping you alive. You're not circulating this blood. You're not splitting the cells. You see, you're not even giving yourself the power to see. That's being given to you. You see, what did you do to give yourself the ability to see? Nothing. What have you done that give yourself the ability to hear? You didn't give yourself these faculties. You didn't give yourself the intellect. So what are you taking all this credit for? Now you can't get that in the context of the lecture with Guru. So the universe gives you the experience. And it's not as pleasant and easy to get the teachings from the universe as it is to get it from the human guru, right? The human guru is, you know, they're compassionate with us, you know what I mean? They joke with us, they bring us around slowly. Universe don't work like that. You know what I mean? It kills your kids, boom. It gives you cancer, boom. It bankrupts you, boom. You see? And it don't hug you, kiss you. And now you know. Grata. So the suffering then, beloved, is sometimes the result of our failure to respond to the grace, not just of the Guru, but the grace of the scriptures. We call it Shastra Kripa, right? The grace of the Bible, the grace of the Quran, the grace of the Apanpada, the grace of the Bhagwan. I mean, all these great scriptures are forms of grace left for our benefit by those great sages and mystics. Are you with me? But we receive the grace of the Bible. We dismiss it. We dismiss all of these books. They don't know what they're talking about. Jesus don't. I know way more than Jesus. What's wrong with you? You need medication. You're suffering from a narcissistic personality disorder. You follow me? Like Donald Trump. You got Trump disease. That's all. So, the Shastras Kripa, that grace is there. You see? The Guru Kripa, that grace is there. But you refuse all of it. You turn your back. Jesus said, when you turn your back on this Holy Ghost, you're in trouble. Because now, Big Daddy Guru is going to come deal with you. And you're not going to like that. That ain't going to be no party at your auntie's house. You see? But it's necessary. One of the mystics said, nobody gets serious on this path until you suffer enough. Right? Because the ego is like that. The ego is going to always find a way to rebel, to come up with some other way out, until all escape routes are cut off. Then you get serious. You see? Then you call on the Lord. Lord, help me, please. Don't let me die. And so forth and so on. Yeah, you get serious. Now, Buddha says that if you look at the psychology of suffering, what you'll find is that it starts with a desire. And this is very interesting. There's these 5 dysfunctional states of mind: anger, lust, greed, attachment. So we're looking at the greed, lobda, greed. Now, what's very interesting, one of the instructions that the Buddhas give us is stay out of the past and stay out of the future. They give us fair warning. Do any of us heed it? Hell no. Right? So, when we run into the future, right? Increase in anxiety. Because right now, I got this much money, but 10 years from now, I don't know if this much money is going to be enough. Right?
Yeah.
So now I'm worried. Even though I got this much money, I'm worried to death now. If this much money going to be enough. Or I got this thing, or whatever it is. Are you with me? This immediately creates anxiety, fear. And one of the underlying facets of suffering is a feeling of insecurity. Make a note. Now you got this much money, and you're feeling very insecure. So you're ready to full of food. You know what I mean? Lights are on, but you're insecure. Insecurity is created when you are trying to take care of the future. We call it kala. Maharaj used to always say, Rani Kamar, you remember, Radhavir, I know you remember Bilal, etc. Maharaj used to always say that kala, time, is the destroyer of everybody. Calls you a hitman, you see, because you're way out in time. And so this, and that produces greed. So I got this much money now, but you do your math and say, I'm gonna need this much money because I'm gonna be alive 20 years from now, right? And so you start accumulating. Right? Greed. Love that. Now you become very insecure and a very, very greedy person.
Wow.
Suffering. It's something. It is something. All right, I just said stay out of the past. You don't listen. Back to the past, right? I made a mistake back there. Let me clean this up. Boy, that person did me wrong. I mean, all kinds of stuff. You get stuck in the past somewhere. Are you with me? Most of your depression is coming from that direction. Further you go in the past, the more depressed you're going to become. Further you move out in the future, the needier and the greater your feelings of insecurity. Not enough. Are you with me? Now the reality, all of us got enough. Now that's just the reality. You got enough shoes for today. You got enough clothes. We ain't got no place to put no more clothes. I got clothes hanging up in the garage. You know what I mean? No more room in the closet for shoes. You know what I mean? All of that. Way more than we need. You know, there's a story. Who's told this story? But Bilal told the story. I might have told the story. I don't even remember anymore. I can't tell the difference between me and Bilal. A long time, right? But in any case, there was the king. I'm just going to run through it real fast because we probably told it before. This king, right, was going to, once a year he would give away to the winner of the lottery, the land lottery, as much land that he can cover from sun up to sundown, right? So Sakyani won that year. Make it interesting. Make the story believable. And so he won it. He had his ticket, yippee, right? But he better get up off this south side, right? And so he presents his winning ticket to the king. He says, yes, you're the winner, congratulations, everybody cursed it. And say, okay, now, here's what you do. You gave him a big bucket full of steaks, right? He said, okay. Now, you see all that open land out there? I own all of that. As much of it that you can cover from now, sun up to sundown, that's yours. You see? He's a young man, right? He had this sack of steak, he took off running. It made him a big circle because you know geometry. He wanted to make sure he has a big plot of land, right? Not just a little railroad track of land, right? Smart guy, that Sakyani. So he's running. Now, they also gave him some provision because, you know, it's hot out there, you see. And he looked at us and said, well, no. Ain't gonna take no blood. At that time, I could stop and drink some water. That could be put in another state down. Right? So he said, I'm gonna be a yogi. I ain't gonna take no food or water. I'm gonna put these things down. And then, you know, and he was covering some good distances, you know. I mean, he had a lot of land going, right? And then, you know, suddenly he started getting tired. He looked up, you know, the sun about 2 o'clock is beginning to get down. And And now he's a long way away from the starting point. Because the deal you can't get with, you got to go all the way wherever you start, then you got to get back here. That's sundown. Otherwise, no deal. That's the deal, right? So Sakyana is way like he's down at Florida. They said sun going down and said, oh shit. And you gotta run back, run the field now. You know, there's energy going, you just run, you know what I mean? And then it started crawling. Trying to get back, right? The sun went down. What he won was 6 feet of ground. That's green. That's what green does. It makes you chase, and then you run out of energy, and boom, you die in front of that big screen TV. On your leather couch. So these things. So again, part of our good G, this failure to heed these instructions that these great sages and seers have given us, and generating desires based on projections into the future, right? And then the greed, and then the running. And what is the cause of that? Projecting ignorance. Because you ain't in control of time. Sure? You can't make no time. You can't buy no time. It's like that. And so the carrots that dangle before all of us as egos is wealth and power. And the problem with wealth is transient. It does not end. Power is superficial. All these powerful men and women and wealthy men and women, gone. Time kills everyone and everything. You see? Where's Genghis Khan? Where's Adolf Hitler? Powerful. Gone. Stop. Gone. Emperor Hirohito. Gone. Right? Is that about right?
Yes.
Yes, sir. And spend all their life accumulating power, as if that's going to stop the angel of death. Time kills everybody here, and it's going to kill you too. And you can use your lifetime in living for the superficial pursuit of wealth and power, or you can kill time before time kills you. Good choice. To transcend time before time annihilates you. Good choice. Anything else about it? Did that help a little bit? Yes, sir. So consider yourself fortunate that you have had the grace of suffering. You see? You see? One poet, Khalil Gibran, said that, we run from suffering. He said, that's the wrong way to deal with suffering. Don't run from your suffering. Sit down next to your suffering. Put your arm around it. Your suffering will teach you much about yourself. It will heal you of your delusions, right? You see? So you're all young and beautiful. I don't need this. I don't need a husband. I don't need a wife. I can make, no. That ain't that high gonna go. Are you with me? You're gonna realize you're not Superman. You have to understand, psychologically speaking, when we're little kids, right? In that first developmental stage from birth to 7, right? Mm-hmm. Our wisdom is not even measurable at that point. And you remember we're little boys and we imagine ourselves to be these superheroes. Boys do this here, right? They do it back there, you see. Little boys, they watch the cartoons, and so we become identified with one of them superheroes, right? I'm Spider-Man, you see. I'm Batman, you see. I'm this, I'm that, right? So we imagine that we're Spider-Man. You're not Spider-Man. You're imagining that. Are you with me? The little girls imagine their little princesses and blah, blah, blah. You're just imagining that. It's your imagination. Are you with me? And so what happened is that we fail to grow up psychologically. And instead of that, we're imagining that I'm Spider-Man, and I'm Superman, and I can leap over a tall building in a single bound. Now you're imagining you this person that you think you are. You're just imagining you all of that. Are you with me? Now can you imagine with me what would happen to a 25, 30-year-old man who thinks he's a Spider-Man, try to climb that wall, try to leap over a tall building? You see the point? Ego is made out of the same process that the little boys back there are making themselves into a superhero right now. Same process. It's all your imagination. It's all they need. Oh, it's too quiet in here. I'm getting scared. You know what happens when people get quiet, you know? Go straight. Nothing good happens after that. Well, perhaps I've said enough for today. Who would have the last word? Yes, I can.
Yeah, Rashid, my last. Yeah, I want to extend to you, as well as from my family, happy belated birthday as well. And I want to say you covered a lot. Just like in the story you told about me, I covered a lot of land. I want to say that I do know from what you have spoken today that I got to cultivate much more Sharada. And I want to say that you often say that, you know, the Lord bless us with many gifts, which the Lord bless me with tremendous gifts. You know what I'm saying? Just gifts. And I want to say that by acknowledging you, that I just want to thank you for being the only person that reminds me of reality itself. And thank the creator by you being the gifts of gifts. You are the gift to give all gifts I got. Thank you, man. One more thing.
One more?
God bless you.
Oh, that's so Baba. Oh, that's so nice. You know, I was hoping I would escape this, pointing this out to you, but you don't, you're not indebted to me. This is something being delivered to you from someone who loves you, but their love is anonymous, you see. So it's awkward to receive thank you for something that is being given to you by something way more deserving. And as we said, Islam, all praise is due to Allah. All right. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sacha Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
You know, memories. I cherish memories, such as videos and pictures and family. And sometimes when I look at some pictures, I begin to wonder. I wonder sometimes, when will I see? When my baby sister Jean come and found me. playing basketball. She's a Holland. She said, took mama to the hospital. I got in the car, rode out to the hospital. And when I got there, mama was sick. Dad was standing in the hall with his head down. And when I looked in at mama, about me being gone, tears streaming down my face. But ain't it funny about it, mama? Mama looked at me with a smile. Even though she was smiling, I could see water filling up in her eyes. And I knew what mama was thinking. I knew what she was thinking. Mama was wondering how when will I see you? When will I see you again? You're my only son, boy. I want to know when. Slept together, sung together. In time, the Lord bless us, Daddy got good. Daddy got sick. I never forget Daddy was in the hospital. The last time I left, I knew he was getting weak. I said, Daddy, I want you to hold on until I get back. That's okay. But when I turned again, I saw that look in his eye. And I knew he was fading away. And when I got into the door,